Okay, Ben, good to see you. I think the last time I saw you was you were singing a karaoke song.
Yeah, not well. Not well.
Nobody sings karaoke that well unless you're like Ruben from Venture X who does it, professionally.
The,
Um,
the
And
first
Kurt.
one, the first one was so bad that my partner walked off in the
oh
middle of
no,
the song.
abandoned. Wait, what was that
Yeah,
one?
Brandon. That was Brandon, and we were singing a Third Eye Blind song.
Oh, okay.
So he walked off, and then the second one was Country Roads Take Me Home, which was great, and we had people come up and join us. So
There
I
you
think
go.
the second one was better. First one was garbage. So.
Third Eye Blind might be tough for karaoke. Country Road is, there we go. That's better.
Yeah, bad song choice. I blame Brandon Medeiros for that.
Totally. Yeah. He's also, he's unreliable. Actually, I got to
Yes.
interview him solo for the Flex Uncensored podcast this week because Gio had some drama and could not
goodness.
make it to the Zoom. So
Did
It's
the
what
drama
drove me to
involve
cut my hair. I pulled a Britney Spears and just shaved it in a moment of weakness.
it wasn't like you actually just spending the afternoon on the boat? Was that was not the drama?
So that is that Ben knows COVID Giovanni, where I would literally take his video calls from the boat in the middle of the lake.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, I see.
Like the worst reception ever. And all I could see is like his beard and his chest, basically. But I wish I was there. That would have been so.
I've never asked you this, so it's funny. Jamie will tell you. So my deal and why I was not on camera was I typically, when we have guests, I basically pull up their space in the background, and I was going to play a prank on you and pull up yours, but I was searching and I couldn't find it. Is that a Regis?
This is Spaces Queen West in Toronto, which
in Toronto.
Which
Okay.
I got the whole story about from Wayne Berger this week, because I showed him this, and this was like the first Spaces in Canada, and his story about this was epic. I mean, it had so many different twists and turns, and it means a lot to him, and I just like the space. And it doesn't look like a background. Like
it doesn't.
There's not the weird like cloud around me on this.
Totally, that's reason. Weird. So, yeah.
So I don't know why, but anyway, he told me the whole story about the space, which was really fun.
That's awesome.
Okay, so let's get this officially kicked off. So Ben is co-founder, Flex Location Services, and head of Flexible Office Solutions at Squarefoot, formerly founder of Upsuite, and you are in Boulder, Colorado.
Amen.
Awesome. Okay, Gio, what are we talking about today?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's so much stuff that Ben's doing currently that, I mean, he and I haven't even caught up in a while. So this is a great opportunity to do that too. But I mean, at this point, not only is he king of, consolidating operators' overall performance and what their availability is and analytics and all that stuff, but I mean, he and Patrick, one of his team members, are now going out and helping operators, helping landlords, really doing some more of the real estate type stuff. So, I mean, I think it'd be cool to start with where you started Upflex, why you started Upflex, and then
wait, wrong company, wrong one, wrong up.
Sorry, wrong up. Upsuite. See the run censored. I'm sitting here.
Let's re-record that part.
Totally.
Well, I'm sitting here totally distracted, trying to upload that background, by the way.
Oh.
But yeah,
I love
where Upsuite came from, why you started it. I mean, obviously you and I've had that discussion, but I think it's important. Jamie's writing down delete moment X, Y to
right.
But kind of where it came about, right? Because I want to jump out there and just kind of say you've come from nowhere, right? You've come out of the blue all of a sudden to become what I think one of the top subject matter experts, thought leaders, because you're just out there so much, right? And it's because you're you're doing your little short video clips in which you have video conversations with people that aren't industry experts, right? So you're kind of doing what Jamie and I are doing, but you're doing it in shorter increments. And so you're getting a lot of touch points out there. So, I mean, where did you start this? Why'd you start it?
And then what are you up to? Yeah. What are you spending most of your time on now? What is my follow-up to that? And wait, before we even start that, do you post your interviews somewhere? I'm always like, wait, where's the whole thing?
Yeah. Well, which question we want to go first?
We asked
That's like
the easy
four.
one. Wait,
That's
the
like
easy
four.
one.
And you guys know me, so that's like
Okay,
20 minutes of dialogue we're gonna get just from those four. So
Okay, exactly. Okay, we'll start with to tell the story. Where'd you start? Ben's a total nerd. You know this, right, Gio? Ben's been on the original podcast, so I got the kind of the backstory. Yeah. So we'll keep the backstory somewhat brief and talk more about what you're up to now, and then I'll ask you the follow-ups.
so I have gone back a little bit to like where did this come from? Why did I get into it? And I think what it really came from. So my background, I started a company in 2001 that was a digital marketing company to recruit companies to cities, and grew it. We had 700 clients at one point in 49 states and 7 countries. So I've been all over the country, and in other countries, really had an expertise in digital marketing and how companies choose locations. And after doing that for almost 2 decades, I wanted to apply that to something different. I didn't know what. In 2015, I gave the office choice for that company that I started to 3 younger mid-level employees and said, look, the office isn't for me, it's for you. You guys choose. And this is no joke. They put an agreement after a few months. They put an agreement in front of me that was 2 pages, and it was for a WeWork. And I'm like, God, this is a lot easier than a lease. And we were the kind of company that we had pictures of the long-term leases that we signed on our wall. Like the places, like at one point we had the entire Colorado governor's mansion, about 6,600 feet, for this company that is called Atlas. And so we loved our offices. But as my thinking changed about what an office was for, the decision-making changed. And so they chose WeWork the Lab, which is in basically a neighborhood called Lohi in Denver. And I just showed up and I had my desk and I sat down and got to work, right? And that was 2015. So as it got to be 2016, 2017, and I was thinking about what else I wanted to do, I thought about, hey, co-working as an industry sounds interesting. It's not very big, so maybe it's not a big deal. But the watershed moment for me was JLL's 30% of the office market by 2030 article, which I think is written by Scott Homa, who I had breakfast with in Dallas and in Frisco. And I've told him that more than once. I'm like, dude, you're really the reason that I'm here. So I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. I knew I liked it. I knew I had heard about WeWork, and it worked for my previous business. So that was the kind of the genesis of what got me started in Flex. And I don't know if I'm a veteran or a rookie, because I've been doing it for 5 years. What do you guys think? Am I a veteran or a rookie?
Well, I just interviewed Scott Chambers, who's been doing it for 20. So
yeah, he's a veteran. Yeah.
Totally.
He is a veteran.
But 5's not bad. When you look at like some of the software companies, I'm always telling people like, give them a minute. They just showed up, let them get sorted.
Yeah. But I think, to your point, I think it's 5 years, but really 3 of your 5 years, I'd say you were like on a fast track, right? Because you've got more data and more research, just overall view into the industry than most people. I'd say 90% plus of people, because, like Scott, love Scott, but Scott has a really good vision into what Pacific does. And he's got a really good relationship with Premier, and he's got a really good relationship with Office Evolution at the time when William was over there and some others. So they talked a lot about their business, which is great. But very few operators actually understand what's going on with other operators, like really understand. And I think that's where I value the relationships that so many of us have built in our the core of this industry, is because we do have open collaborative conversation. I mean, that's what I love about Lexi, right? It's real operators sitting in a room and giving real information. And so, I don't think you're a rookie. I think you're getting really close to being a veteran, just out of pure experience and the knowledge that you have. But I mean, I think that's what's been awesome, is how quickly you've kind of gotten up to speed and where you are in the industry as a whole.
Well, so COVID played a really interesting role in that too, because pre-COVID, our team was focused not only, but mostly on the occupier side, which was, okay, the big challenge that the industry has is there's always vacancy in co-working. So let's fill it, and let's fill it cost effectively. And so from 2017 to really the end of 2019, early 2020, that was where I was focused. And so got to understand, and that was also my background with the companies, helping companies relocate prior. So that was interesting. But I remember, it was probably May of, 2 months into COVID, I was thinking about our marketing plan for Upsuite, and I just was like, none of this matters. Literally, we could do all of this or none of this, and it's not going to make one bit of difference. So we had been, I think, humble enough in 2018, 2019 to go to operators and say, hey, we know you want butts and seats, but what else do you need? Because we could do more with this data set that we're building, and really all we're doing is that. So when butts and seats became something that wasn't happening, we turned to the other things, which was really two things. And the biggest thing was operators were adding a lot of new locations in 2018, 2019. And they said, that is such a big commitment. It can be $5 million, $10 million, $20 million commitments that they're making. Help us de-risk that. And I remember hearing that, being like, well, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but we have no idea. We have no idea how to do that. So I hear you in 2018, but we filed it away. But then when it became COVID times, we really could work on that. And so worked on how can we take this information and turn it into something that's useful? Like, for example, demand is a really hard thing to quantify. And so we worked at, okay, how can we turn what we have into a good articulation of demand? And then how can we do it at the location level, or the we call it micro market level, not just the market as a whole. So that was the first thing. Then the next thing was pricing. How can we structure our information to show where operators can charge more and charge less, and for what, right? And then during COVID, that pricing conversation got fascinating, because team suites were not demanded, hot desks were not in demand, and the pricing fell through the floor. So we could watch all that happen. Next thing was competition. We learned so much about why certain large operators could make it through COVID, and certain couldn't, because of how they were competing and geographically who was competitive. And then we also gathered from a lot of the smart operators that we know, what are the right demographics, right? What makes a good demographic makeup for an area to put a center in. And so we applied all these skills to create what we use now to help locate centers. And I remember I went to Square Foot with this idea, and I said, hey, I think we could do this. They asked us to a few years ago. I think we're ready. And the leadership was kind of like, well, that sounds like a big opportunity, but it also sounds really competitive. So maybe like set your sights a little smaller on something else. And then 2 weeks later, Patrick and I pitched one of the larger operators anywhere, and they hired us. So it was kind of like, well, okay, I think we ought to do it. So fast forward, that's now what I've spent, 90% of my time on for the last 9 to 12 months. And my role in it, because I'm not a broker, my role in it is, how do you take what's a good location where you can make money? how much should you spend on real estate? How much should you not? What should you not do? And so it's really narrowing this ocean of real estate opportunities down to a few options, and turning them over to our brokerage partner that I work with. So Patrick Braswell. So it's been a really fascinating journey, and I'll always learn. If I'm not learning, I'm probably dying. And this has been a really interesting 9 months. It's been an interesting 5 years, to be honest.
Jamie?
Go. You're giving me the it's your turn. So you, and I haven't looked, lately, Upsuite was focused on kind of, broader market data, like recovery data, pricing data. Is that still part of what you do? Or have you kind of, it obviously rolls a little bit, overlaps into the objective of helping operators decide how and where to expand. But yeah, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Upsuite has a front end component that people can find, and they do every day of the year find co-working spaces on it. So there's 4,500 co-working spaces on it, and they can go on and find the ones that they like and look at all kinds of cool stuff, and then work with our brokerage team to do it. We've also put all those listings on squarefoot.com, which one of the things that's really fascinating is if you take the traffic of those two sites and you add them up, it's 30% more than Liquid Space plus Instant plus Coworker.com, just the two that we control. So there's really a lot of visibility for co-working operators by working with us in that way. And that was really the intrigue to join Squarefoot in the first place. So we take all that, Jamie, and then we extract the stuff that's really useful for operators making location decisions. So who's looking where, what transactions are happening, what are the numbers behind the transaction, and one of the things that you pointed out, what are the trends? And this has been, I'll admit it, I'm a nerd, but I'll give you an example. Chicago. Go ahead. I was going to change the subject and go really deep, but
no. I want to hear about Chicago. I always want to hear about Chicago, but your academic background, remind us what that is, because it's pretty nerdy.
Super nerdy. Quantitative economics was my major. Urban studies is my minor. So what I really found, thank you, Teddy Roosevelt. What I found was I just think about cities and how they grow and change. And I did in my previous career, and I did before. I was an economist in my 20s for the Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation when I was 24, which is, super nerdy, but I was my colleagues were in their 50s and
right,
wear pocket protectors, and I was like 24, and who knew? I just have always been really interested in it, and so try to bring that into the co-working world. But as we were talking about Chicago, I've gotten totally fascinated by, because I grew up in Seattle, which there are certain cities during COVID that were really hard hit. Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, for 3 examples, they were hit by 2 things: COVID and social unrest. LA as well. Those cities have come back differently and at different times than Atlanta, Houston, Nashville, cities like that. So flex, as you know, Jamie, because we've talked about this a bunch, flex is so, this is a word one of my former colleagues at Squarefoot, Phil Sophia, talked about. He said it's so twitchy, and he's right. Like, people come into flex quickly, they leave flex quickly, and from a real estate perspective,
customers or
okay, occupiers. So the demand for it's really twitchy, and so when things like COVID happen, or a downturn in the economy, or the price of oil, or somebody moves,
right? Because it's like consumer based, right? And it's 30-day agreements, maybe longer, but it's not a long-term lease. And so, right, if
Right.
you're used to looking at long-term leases, it's super twitchy. It's a
Super
customer
twitchy.
acquisition business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been, in terms of like from a data nerd perspective, watching all these cities recover and not recover and change. So for example, Chicago just really has started to recover in the last 3 months, and it's almost the last city in North America to do it. Like, it's later than Canada, which
And
is
I would just not
which
have
is super
expected
strange.
that. Chicago
Me
also
either.
had some social, like a lot of weird downtown stuff happening after George Floyd. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else explains it, because the downtown, I mean, the Loop, the real central downtown I would expect that to be delayed, but so
Yep.
many urban spaces there that are awesome and such a vibrant like city.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think, without really stepping on a bunch of political landmines, which we know I'm good at, part of the issue there is the continued social unrest and a safety issue, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with Portland and Seattle and some other cities like that. And so, I mean, Bill Bennett, who has a huge presence in Chicago, I remember him posting a video basically of him walking into a pharmacy downtown, and literally they've got like candy bars and almonds and behind plexiglass that you literally have to ask for help for someone to come do that. And so I think that's a big part of what's driving the return to the office in CBD cores, not just Chicago, but is the social unrest or safety issues, right? And so, I mean, until we have a system that can make office goers and even residential people, right, that comfortable back. I don't know who I was talking to, but someone told me that they have, it was probably Bill Bennett, I think, that has employees that have gone and gotten like German shepherds because they live downtown. And so that's their way of feeling safe when they go walking in the evenings or whatever. So it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So continuing that conversation and being your data nerd and having what you have is now let's talk about the CBD urban locations versus suburban. What are you seeing in all your data? Is it true? I mean, because we're all saying that, right? It's a flight to the suburbs. Is that true with the information you have?
So this one's like really interesting because I have a ton of bias like in this area myself, right? So it was definitely clear during COVID, right, that the demand in the suburbs was much higher. I mean, you guys know, because operators so well, like the suburban Regis or the suburban office evolution that has the one person private office with a door was a safer proposition during COVID than a team suite in a downtown where you might have to take transit or a train, right? So during COVID, it was 100% clear. Now, as certain markets have been recovering, there are a lot of our clients that are saying, I want to put a team suites product in the suburbs because this is where people want to live. And I have to admit, I was a little nervous by that because I knew that a private office could work there where it's one person and a door and all that. In talking credit to Scott Homa, he talks about the 3-dimensional suburb, right? Where you can live, work, play. I think that is a good place for team suites. And there are a number of operators from eSpaces to Thrive to others that have really had successful businesses in 3-dimensional small suburbs, and they continue to be really, really good. So, but I was expecting the return to more of an urban thing. So for example, we looked at like Manhattan versus Brooklyn, right? And we saw Brooklyn was really, really doing great during COVID. But as Manhattan had started to recover, the demand in Brooklyn went down. So essentially more and more people were coming into Manhattan, which made sense. Now, fast forward a little bit to looking at a bunch of different markets. I do think there's a real change happening between urban and suburban. I just do, and I think there's a lot of reasons, but urban cores aren't, at least from a work standpoint, they're not coming back the same way. So restaurants are back, concerts are back, sporting events are back that are often urban oriented. Work is not, right? And all the numbers show that, and every number shows that. So I've had to really deal with some of my own bias. I'm like, well, because for example, I was on the board of the International Economic Development Council, and I was on the board of the Downtown Denver Partnership. So I've been a promoter of downtowns. And so, and I think there's a lot of great things that happen in cities that have really good downtowns. But office demand is not coming back yet in the same way. So a lot of floor plates are getting smaller. Geo, as you know, like the big 50-person suites inside of a large co-working operator are the ones that are empty. So they're cutting them up and they're making them smaller. Even operators that didn't have suites that were that big are, instead of 8s, it's 4s, or instead of 4s, it's 2s. And so those feel like the right strategies. And I don't know how long it'll take for downtowns to come back. Like, I hope it's not like a return to the 1970s, right? Where there was all this flight to the suburbs, and it, a lot of cities were really struggling for decades after that. I think of like LA or Phoenix or Denver or Kansas City. All these cities had long-term moves to the suburbs, and suburbs became the places to be. We've had a lot of time since then of people wanting to come back downtown, but maybe we're going to a bigger shift here. And so I don't know, but it hasn't, downtowns have certainly not come back as quickly as I would have thought.
Well, I think part of it, and you both of you are a good example of this. So obviously I have a different take on it than I do, but part of it is from an overall quality of life, right? I mean, I talked about how COVID is basically given us here in the US a work-life balance like we've never had any time that I've been alive, certainly, or any time I look back and see. But, I think part of it is it's not necessarily people don't want to go to the urban core because of safety reasons, all that. But again, the time it takes to get there, right? The 45 minutes to hour and a half. In California, there's parts of California where it takes you 2.5 hours to get to work. Each way, right? And so part of it is people are taking back their time. And so this is where I'd love to get your feedback is, but what I see the CBD and urban core is becoming is younger people and people that, Ben, I think you're really close to being an empty nester, right? So it's going, you don't need to worry about the school systems anymore. You don't need to worry about the neighborhood. For your kids to go bike ride and all that stuff. You don't need the backyard. And so I think that's kind of where, like New York, right? The people that have moved back into New York are people that couldn't afford to live in New York before, that wanted to live in New York. The people that were in New York before had basically gone to the suburbs going, hell, I don't want to go into New York, 45-minute to hour train ride or bus ride every day. And so they're officing near those train systems. Would y'all agree or disagree with those statements? Or how would you challenge them?
So like the demographics guy in me thinks about it this way. Like, there was already a move to the suburbs with young families. Like, the biggest demographic group we've got now are the folks in their mid-20s to upper 30s, right? That's the biggest cohort other than the baby boomers. There's so many reasons for them to move to the suburbs because they're having kids and kids are in schools and you get more house. I was that person. My wife and I moved to the suburbs. I'm not even going to say how long ago, but in that period of time, and it had nothing to do with COVID and nothing to do with work from home or any of that stuff. It just was like, we want more house for less money and we want a good school system. So you got that's happening. Then you've got I just was able to spend a lot of time in my house for a couple years, right? Anyway, so where do I really want to be? And I probably want more space than I had because I'm spending more time, and I want an office because I can now work from there. So you've got that on top of it. I do think, younger folks are going to want to come where it's more central. Like, I remember I moved to Colorado right after college to Boulder. And I remember I was like 20 22 in a college town that I couldn't really afford. And I'm like, this place is lame. It's just college students and baby boomers, right? Like I don't. So I moved to Denver, right? And I moved downtown. And so I think some of it's stage of life stuff, and it's always like important to know where are there more people of certain age groups. So, but yeah, I think we have an operator client that's like, all I want to do is go to 3-dimensional suburbs. That's the only thing. That's the only place I want
the live work play. Yeah.
the live work play suburbs. And there's not that
Yeah.
many of those unless you're
There are not that many. I mean, I think that's the thing about suburbs is, they have to be attractive, like, Plano, Frisco, like that's a
seems like
great
Plano has one every like few miles, which is
Plano.
that's a little weird, but
Yeah,
I've never
but
seen that before.
pretty
But
compelling.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, for a suburban, that's the thing about the suburbs. I mean, long term, I mean, my track was the same as Ben. I moved to Naperville, which is whatever, 45 minutes outside of Chicago when I was 22 for a job that was further out. And I lasted like 6 months. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to meet anybody. Like I had work friends. That was it. Right. How am I going to
Right.
find a boyfriend? All those things. I got to go to this. Go to the city. It was so boring. And then when you have the kid, you're like, oh, I don't want to pay for private school, and I can't handle like schlepping all the stuff. And we got to move, time to move to something more manageable. And now I can't wait, to Gio's point, to be done with the suburbs and go back to the city when I can't. I'm not rushing my daughter being older than 10, but that will be the plan. We don't need to live in Burlingame.
Let's be honest, she's 10 going on like 45. I haven't even met her.
I know.
And I already know.
So I don't know, but also there are cities that are recovering faster, right? Like Vegas, Phoenix, that are smaller, maybe more approachable, easier to get to.
Well, I think they're lifestyle cities.
Yeah.
Ben, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that's even been happening for a long time. Like I remember one of my clients was the mayor of San Francisco, who is now the governor of California. And we went and talked to a bunch of businesses in San Francisco and said, essentially, what can the Office of Economic Development in San Francisco do for you? And they basically said, just stop trying to push us out of here, right? Because it's so expensive and lots of regulation and whatever. Like essentially, places like California have been building the Western United States, from Portland to Seattle to Salt Lake to Colorado to Texas, right, for decades. And so that's been happening, and like the move to lifestyle cities. And now it's Jacksonville and Nashville, and even Colorado's gotten too expensive. So it's places like Albuquerque and others, and Austin has been on that list. So that's been happening for a while too. It's funny. I feel like I'm channeling Scott Homa again, because he has this longer term view where he's like, all this is really doing is just moving these bigger trends forward faster. It's not changing any of the course per se, or maybe it is in a few ways, but not in every way. So like I bought a condo in Jacksonville during COVID, because my wife's family is there, and that place is booming and will continue to boom for a lot of reasons. And it, to hear my brother-in-law say it was not the cultural mecca that it is today 20 years ago when he moved there, right? But that's kind of how this goes over time. If you like get old enough and watch long enough, you see these places change like that. And so I just think we're in maybe a period of faster change right now.
So I nerded out real quick while you were saying that, and
Are you Googling?
explodingtopics.com. So 20 fastest growing US cities: Austin, Raleigh, Cary, North Carolina, Orlando, Charleston, Houston, Sarasota, Florida, San Antonio. Everyone always overlooks San Antonio, right? And I live here in Texas, but it's not super sexy.
Right.
But I mean, when you look at it, it's one of the largest cities in the entire country. And I don't think it gets any credit, right? Then you got Dallas, Phoenix, Nashville, Charlotte, Denver, which we obviously talked about, Las Vegas. Seattle's still on here as a growing city. Jacksonville, Tampa, Atlanta, Salt Lake City, Oklahoma City. That's another one that no one really,
Right.
that people don't
Right.
realize. It's a tier 1 city, but people treat it like a tier 2 city. But it's a tough city. I'll tell you, it took me 3 years to get a Regis done deal done there, because
In Oklahoma City?
it's a good old boy market. The problem is they didn't want to give us the 12 months of free rent.
Right.
And this guy, total good old boy, Harvard grad attorney who owned the building, who owned half of downtown, didn't want to do a deal with someone called Giovanni based out of Dallas, Texas. It's like, so the big joke. And by the way, the last city on there is McAllen, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and again, I think McAllen's driven by the border town, right? I think you've got a lot of Mexican nationals that are living in the border, even San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and they still run their companies across the border for safety reasons and economic purposes and all kinds of stuff. But I mean, I just think that list is super interesting. Obviously, all the Texas major cities are on there and a bunch of the big Florida ones. So I think we're going to continue to see that.
So this is like the economic development world that I was in before co-working, right? It's all these cities that are vying to be, you know, the next big thing, right? And so that's all Southeast, which has been the fastest growing region in the country for 10 or 20 years. And it's West, which was the fastest growing region before that. And where are they all coming from? They're coming from California. They're coming from the upper Midwest, you know, Illinois and Michigan. They're coming from the Northeast. And so these are all just trends that they're not new, right? They're just continuing and maybe accelerating. Like, I think Florida's fascinating. Like, Florida's not one state. I can tell you that. It's, you know, south of Florida is one thing. And then where we are in Jacksonville and North Florida is more like Georgia than it is like South Florida. And so part of what we do, like the three of us, is we help folks navigate those differences. And some of our clients they don't look at it very quantitatively. They're like, look, I just don't want to be in California. And that has nothing to do with talking to them all day long about real estate deals and demand and customers. And they're like, I just don't want to do it. Or I don't want to be in a city I don't want to be in a CBD. And so these types of things are things that I think for the three of us, I think are really, it's important we can see the big trends, but also see the opportunities within those trends, that, hey, it doesn't really mean everything you think it means. Here's the opportunity for you. And so those are the most interesting conversations that we have with our clients.
That's what I was just thinking, because I was like, well, you know, bring this back to the work that you're doing, which is trying to help, you know, operators decide where to locate. And I thought, oh, they must come to you because they want to take the emotion out of the decision to some extent. But if emotionally they don't want to be in California, you're still like, you know, okay, we'll take that off the table, even though the data says, you know, whatever market is an opportunity. But to some extent, I mean, it's really hard to know, even when you talk about Chicago, like, well, why are people not going back unless you have some insight and some data? The team suite question, I love, because I think that's one of the hardest things to know right now, right? Is product mix. So, you know, in a market where you have some data on search, that's a huge advantage, because it's hard to intuit sometimes, like, who's using Flex in a market. You got to know, like, who's looking for it. That's a unique perspective that you bring to the table, because you can, you know, search around a little bit, but without the search data, you don't necessarily know.
Well, so Gio, I think you'll have a unique perspective on this part of it. So when the time at which I entered 2017, everybody thought Regis was dead, right? It was dated. It wasn't attractive. You didn't feel, to use a WeWork term, activated, right? It just didn't feel right, right? And fast forward to today, when you really look at pro formas and layouts of spaces per desk, the old fashioned private office, you can make more money from that per desk and even per square foot than any other product in co-working, including, you know, I mean, bar none. And so part of me, like the taking emotion out of it is one part of what we do, but like uncovering just the kind of the basic truths of the industry. And Gio, these are things you know because you've done so many deals, but like certain things like location don't change over time, or certain things like how much I can charge per desk don't like that's going to be important forever, right? No matter what happens, that's going to be important. So I have as much fun out of like realizing why things worked a certain way in the past as I do discovering kind of new, like what's new. But I imagine that I don't know how many times you probably said that to your clients, Gio, but probably in the hundreds.
Oh my gosh, I can tell you, I just hung up a call where I had to have a sidebar conversation off the record. Because here's part of it too, right? Is people that are newer to the industry, right? Kind of on that rookie JV kind of side, is they're like, well, I mean, are we going to go back to private offices? Are we going to go back to working in a corporate office setting? And here's what I tell my clients, all of them. I'm like, look, the one thing that we know tried and true over and over again for 30 years is that entrepreneurs exist, right? And they're always going to exist. They're always going to go out and start their own companies. They're going to basically grow and go into these private offices. So that's tried and true for me, right? And so anytime I have to really give feedback on my opinion, that's what it is, right? The team offices and the larger offices, I can tell you, hey, I feel like things are going to head that way, or, these are the parameters behind it, right? I mean, give the example I'd love using is, and I just had a conversation with an owner down there in Bentonville, Arkansas, right? I did 2 Regis deals in Bentonville when I was there. And that was right after Walmart, basically, in order to help the economic development of Bentonville and the surrounding area, they required their vendors to have an office there.
Oh, that's right.
So I'll tell you, we took offices and we built out like 30 square foot offices, right? Offices that no one was ever going to office in or was going to stand in, just because they were required to have one. Two, a lot of the co-working spaces / executive suites down there have display rooms, right? So rather than having a conference room, they've got, because what happens is these buyers have to come in and you got to show them the displays. And so the reason I use that as an example is because it's real easy to go, okay, this is why, there's demand here, is because it is basically been created by the Waltons, right, to grow stuff. But at the same time, where is their need for team office space? Back to your point is, we have operators out there that built out. I mean, Hana's a great example, right? You look at their large team suites that unfortunately they weren't able to lease up because CBRE thought they were going to get a bunch of their enterprise clients into them, and that didn't work out as it did. Convene did the same thing, right? I think the world of Ryan. I think he's amazing, but at the same time, he got in on the front end of COVID and said, people aren't going to go back to the private offices. And I'm like, that's the one thing that I always know people are going to go back to. Yeah. And so it's just interesting. My question is, how long are people going to look at those team suites, and what size do those team suites end up being? I think there's going to be demand for them. But to what extent, right? At what point does the pendulum swing back?
Well, and most importantly, at how much per desk, right?
Yeah.
Because you just cannot make as much per desk in a team suite environment. So if indeed, and co-working operators need to make money, right? At some point over the long term, they have to make money, right? Then they're going to have the most optimal product to make money. And at this point, that includes a lot of small offices. Now, I will say this, one of the things I'm totally not sure about is this kind of daily, weekly, call it gym membership style. Let's sell. So I want to put something to you guys, if that's okay. So every time I meet with an aggregator, as an aggregator and a brokerage firm, we focus on teams, right? So those are the profitable clients that co-working operators want, and so we focus on that. But there's this whole segment and growing segment of, I want to book something by the day or by the hour or whatnot. So every time I talk to an aggregator that focuses on that, I ask them, when somebody buys a pass from you, how many days a week do they use it? Or how many days a month do they use it?
Mhm.
So far, the average is between 2 and 3 days a month.
Yeah.
So you're paying.
So
you're-
my
you're-
lifetime value is like,
Well, no, not necessarily. Like, here's how the model can't work if you're charging a large corporation $400 a month for that, because you're paying $200 a day for that. Like, that's more than they were paying in any other form of office, right? So they're not going to do that.
not long term anyway.
Yeah, but
Yep.
so now it can work if you're like, well, okay, in the 20 in-office days in a month, if I can sell that desk, if I can sell 10 passes per desk, then I've got something.
If you
And
can.
so to me, that's not a part of the market I've focused on. There's a lot of interest in that, and there's a lot of discussion going back to our suburban conversation that's the product for the suburbs, right? But have you known anyone that can sell the same desk 10
Right.
times over
Right.
enough to make money on the space that they're allocating to it? Because I have not.
Right.
So
I always
I'm
say
interested in that one.
you can sell that desk 10 times over, but can you? Right? Like,
But do you?
is there
Yeah.
that? Yes. Is there the demand? Can you get those leads in the door and can, convert them? I hear people say that occasionally because I make that point often. Like, please don't assume that in your pro forma until you can prove that. And then it's gravy, right? And then maybe you adjust your mix based on that. I think you get a unique market where there's enough corporate demand where they're buying access, right? So the corporation will say, well, I need, seats for 20 people, and they're going to come in and, mix around, and we're going to mark them off and, charge, or you're just charging them for access on a monthly basis. And they're not overly concerned about, to your point, they are concerned over the long term. Did I spend $200 a day for a pass?
Yeah.
I think you have to be in a particular market, and you would probably see some of that demand data. Like, what are people looking for in terms of usage? I think it's risky. Do I want to open a space that relies on that? No, I'm not sleeping at night.
Yeah.
But it's opportunity for upside if you get that demand. But that's a unique market, I think, where you're getting enough of those people.
Well,
And the problem is that market can die at any point, right? I mean, think about people that were driven by that pre-COVID, right? Immediately they went, I mean, most of those people canceled, right? That's just the reality. And maybe this is traditional conservative side in me. And I was like this way before I cut my hair and looked traditional and conservative, but 60%, I tell clients, 60% of your space has to be private offices. You can do whatever you want with the other 40%. I don't care. But again, that's the efficiency that I've experienced works for Regis and for everyone else. And that's where spaces got out over there. I mean, look behind you, right? Look at how much open space there is. I mean, how do you monetize? I guess it's behind me too. I forgot.
Yeah, you got it.
How do we monetize that space that's behind us, Ben? I mean, it's just, you can't.
Right.
And
I think that's the assumption they made, is that exists, and people love that, trendy banquettes and booths, and they'll be, they'll have to lock the doors to keep, people up, but it just doesn't materialize because it's all optional, and it's just not predictable. But some markets
to me, the alternative, and I've seen this and I've experienced this, like I'm on a pass and I use my pass anywhere I want, basically 2 days a month. But I've started seeing fixed built-in offices that are 40 square feet.
That's right.
And I talk to people about that. It looks like a phone booth.
Yep.
And people look at that and they have a really negative reaction. But the truth is, you're not in that space for 8 hours. You're in that space for when you're on Zoom calls and whatever. I actually think that's a product.
I love that product.
We'll see more of.
Yes.
And it's weird. Like, it's weird. It feels funny, but I think we're going to see more of that.
Regis is selling the shared private office. That's not exactly what you're talking about, because I think you're talking about more of a very micro, and maybe people have a reaction to it. But that idea of access to a private office, that's going
We
to,
see that.
that's going
We
to
see
be
that
it.
from a number of operators.
Yeah.
We saw our pricing data start to fall with private offices, and I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And it was a few
Fractional.
operators who were really going fractional with a big,
Yep. But they can
big bit of their
oversell.
listings.
To your point, that's where I think the oversell opportunity is. And you can almost guarantee it that you can, you know, if you put some marketing effort towards it and put a lot of focus on it, that's a great product.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. So Gio, did you weigh in on the past product? Do you feel like what's the future other than advising your clients not to have more than 40% kind of common space? Does that cover it? Or like
I think, I mean, even dedicated desks. I mean, I'm seeing, you know, there's a struggle on dedicated desks to sell those, right? And I don't know, it's a fact
Market
that people
specific
want-
also. Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And there's places where it sells, there's environments where it sells, but overall, I just, if I'm banking on the next 10 years and putting down, you know, signing on a note or a lease, I'm not building that space out, right? I'm sticking to what I know is tried and true. And I'm signing a 6, 12, 18-month license agreement, and I know what's going to be there, right? And so I think that's the hardest part. Is, I mean, I love the pass, like what Desk Pass is doing, where you can drop in and use the pass. But as far as building out space, expecting that you're going to get someone that's going to pay $299, $399. I mean, I'll tell you the formation space in Frisco that you guys probably popped into. I mean, they're charging $599, but you get access to their gym downstairs, and you never know what cowboy or former cowboy or
Oh yeah. They're selling.
you're going to run into. You're selling the
Yeah.
experience there, right?
Yes.
And so, to Jamie's point, there are markets that you can do that, right? Because you have that ability, but it's not the typical case where you're going to get that, right? And I'm all about community and building that overall, you know, ability to connect with people. But I mean, I want to build that somewhere where there's energy and vibrance and stuff like that. But yet it's a smart opportunity from a capitalistic standpoint.
So I know we're getting close to the end of our time, but I have another question for you guys. So we were all at GWA and we did karaoke and had, honestly, everybody was excited to see each other, and it was great to be back together. And it just felt like unequivocally perfect, right?
Yeah.
In my view. But I had this sinking feeling about, okay, what's all this positivity and a lot of the numbers were, almost everybody's numbers are up and to the right. But as we start to ease towards what a lot of people are thinking is a recession, one of the things that as we just are about to release our Q3 data where demand is down, which for demand to be down in Q3 is very rare in any normal Q3 because Q3 is the time when anybody looks. So for it to be down a little bit is weird. There were way more markets that were down than there were markets that were up. I mentioned Chicago. Chicago was the fastest growing demand market in the country, but it was also the only one that hadn't really had that release of demand. So I wanted to get your guys' take on a potential recession and if you're seeing signs of it. We're starting to see signs of it with some of our operator clients saying, maybe we won't outlay, maybe we won't grow as fast, maybe we won't do that deal, maybe we won't, you know, it's not as bullish maybe as it was 3 months ago. What are you both seeing?
So I'll tap into my Teddy Roosevelt to start off with. You know, here's the reality, right? I mean, this idea that we could be in a recession. We're in a recession. There's no doubts about it.
That's right.
I mean, if you look at where we are, how quickly things have shifted, changed. You look at the stock market, you look at
inflation,
you know, all these things, interest rates of where we are, the ability to these operators that I have that are out buying stuff can't go buy stuff unless we're buying something that has assumable loans, something where a landlord's willing or a seller is willing to do some kind of seller financing. So here's the reality, in my opinion, right, is until the midterm hits, which is a little over a month, who knows when this will come out, right? We'll call it a couple of weeks. And we either know we're going to continue down the path that we're on, right? And we can set a platform of going, okay, for the next 2 years, we've got this representation in place and we adjust to it. Or we get a change of the guard to whatever extent that looks like, right? And there's some hope and some positivity as to how we kick out of this thing. I think we're going to, in my opinion, yes, we haven't seen the bottom of it, but I think everyone that understands it knows, in my opinion, it's not going to get any worse than COVID, right? I mean, we're not all going to go back into lockdown. People still need to continue making money. People still need to continue having somewhere to office. Yes, I think we're going to continue to see, unfortunately, layoffs, regardless of what happens in the next few weeks. But those people, again, a lot of those people are going to go out and start consulting businesses. They're going to start,
the typical post-recession.
They're going to merge with someone else, and they're going to need an office near them. So I think, in my opinion, it's going to continue getting better. It's just going to look different, right? I don't think you're going to have people taking down 10-year, 5-year long-term leases, but those people still need somewhere to office, right? There's a lot of corporations, enterprise business out there that's having to shift, to Joe Brady's point, to adjust that the employee is now a consumer, right? And so the true talent is going, I'm going to live in this city and it's best for my family. It's best for me from an overall lifestyle standpoint. And if you want me to work for you, this is where you can have me work for you. And the talent's going to dictate those things. So I'm positive about where we're continuing to head. I just don't think it's going to look like what people thought it was, where we'd hit this big old hockey puck coming out of COVID.
Yeah. We should have Scott Chambers answer this question. I mean, I kind of asked him that, and he, because he's been doing this since 2001, I think. So he made the comment in my interview with him, they raised money in 2006, which was right before, the big crash, and then 2019. And they're in a growth and expansion mode. I think the sentiment is, yes, we need to take some caution, but that the acceleration will continue in the favor of flex in the way people are working. So I think maybe that's why you're seeing the Q3 dip, is a little bit of like pullback, interest rates, construction cost, all the things that are impacted. Gas prices in California are over $7 a gallon still, by the way. So if I have to pick between my co-working space and filling up my SUV tank, then maybe people are making, choices on the margin. But I think, your question about sort of the enthusiasm and the, optimism about the future. Yeah, I'm in the camp that it's still there. I think that the fact that
Flex Uncensored.
Yeah.
I've got Scott Chambers on the phone, and he's going to answer the question
now?
as you asked. Yes. Say hi, Scott.
Hey, Scott. How's it going?
So it's Jamie and Ben Wright. And we're talking, she was just talking about how you just did everything. Everything co-working with her. So we're filming Flex Uncensored, and the question came up. Ben, you want to ask the question? Because Jamie said you were the best to answer it.
So here's the question. So we were all at GWA, including you, Scott, and there was such exuberance. Everybody was excited to see each other, excited about the future. But here we are, kind of headed to or in a recession. So what does that mean for Pacific, but also what does that mean for co-working operators in general? How should they be thinking about the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, so this question has a little bit of a geographical spin with respect to the opinion that I've formed relative to the recession that we're in or not in. What I feel is that the pent-up demand of people wanting to get back out and be part of an office and be part of socialization out here on the West Coast especially is going to outweigh what I predict to be a relatively mild recession, or at least so far from what we're seeing. And from a macroeconomic standpoint, what it means for Pacific is on the supply side, we're finding landlords are super excited about flex and willing to starting to write the $100 to $120 a square foot checks for the proper TIs that are going to be required for the next generation of space. And while we talked about deal structure at GWA with management contracts, which we favor, flexible leases, participating retail type structures, minimum performance guarantees, profit sharing, and things like that. Ultimately we buy long and sell short. And I think it's going to be a great time to capture on some opportunities out there. If you've ever studied Warren Buffett, he comes up with cash at the time when the world is just over. Everybody just thinks the world's ending, and he walks away a couple of years later looking pretty brilliant. So the suppliers are ready to do more deals and do creative deals and love Flex a lot more than they ever have. And they know the pitfalls of Flex too. They've seen that, we can be disrupted by a COVID, we can be disrupted by a recession. But with the consumerization of the demand curve, corporate America buying into it to larger and larger degrees, and the publicity around it, I think that the recession impact on us at Pacific will be, I kind of feel like it'll be negligible because there's just so much demand that's been sitting at home that's already, our lead flows up, our deal structures are up, our revenues are growing. I haven't really felt the recession. And in prior recessions, we felt them great out here in technology land. We have wild swings in our markets. So that's my answer. So there could be some geographical differences as to how this unfolds across the country and the globe.
Well, there you go. Flex Uncensored, a drop in, phone a friend. All right, brother. I'll give you a call later.
Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Love you. Bye.
So
See, that's what I love about our industry. What did it? How many people can call someone and they answer like that? And Lee said, hold on a minute, let me run to my office. That's what I love about this industry, right? That's what the friendships we form do. But I don't think anyone could answer that question any better than he just did.
You know what's interesting though is if we did call somebody from every region, the answer would be different. Like if we called somebody in Atlanta right now, they'd say we're nervous.
The world,
right?
Oh, they would. Oh,
They'd say we're nervous
really?
because they had so much positive demand so much sooner.
Yeah.
In Scott's world, it was all those markets,
Delayed.
Bay Area in particular, were really late. If you talk to folks in Chicago, they'd say, I talked to an operator in Chicago who said, I had my best lead flow in August in our history, right? But if you talk to somebody in DC that actually recovered, urban DC, that recovered first because of the last election 2 years ago, if you're in downtown DC, you are not as optimistic, right? So it really is a regional, it's interesting to get a regional perspective. And I'm happy for Scott and for Pacific for sure.
Yeah, so it's about time to land the plane. So Ben, what are your 3 favorite things about yourself?
About myself? Oh my God.
He likes to throw curveballs.
I know my daughters.
Okay.
That's probably number one. I celebrated my 20th wedding anniversary with my wife in July. And I love to take dumb risks. Like I do something every year that scares the crap out of me. And last year I went to Silverton Mountain, which has one ski lift, and every run is a double black. And I asked the guide, because you have to have a guide, how were these runs created? And they said, oh, every one of these was created by an avalanche. And so, and I'm not, like, I was by far the slowest skier in my group, and I was scared to death. I almost skied off of a waterfall, a frozen waterfall when I was there. There was an 80-foot waterfall. They were like, no. So I didn't do it. But I like that because it forces me to learn and challenge myself. So those are the 3.
I think it's awesome that none of those 3 things had anything to do with business. Typically we ask people that and they come up with something business. So I love that your first 2 were family oriented. That's amazing. I see Jamie shaking her head because I know she's a big family person too. And but dude, it's just been awesome to see your overall growth in the industry, not just as a person, right? But how quickly you have become a voice and a place where people go and follow to get information from yourself and from other people, right? So keep those videos going. I know that you make a difference, and it's even fun to see kind of from a professional standpoint, how now you're out there doing something different, right? Not only are you doing the aggregation, but you're helping operators with their decisions. And I mean, we need more people like you and I and Jamie and, you know, all these people that are truly passionate about the industry, but are also giving back.
I told my wife this, no joke, Gio, that GWA and the group that we have, I've really found who I believe are my people in this industry. And I know a lot of people feel that way. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Thanks for making
All
the
right.
time to do this on a Friday afternoon, no less. We'll do it
Yeah,
again
have a
soon.
great weekend, you guys.
Thanks,
Take care.
Ben.